Chapter 24, Part 1, Reaching Unity and What It Feels Like. Yet another move was upon me. I had now lost count of how many times I'd done that in my life, and it was really starting to wear on me. But here I was again, packing up and heading back to California. I retrieved my belongings from storage and made a spontaneous decision to relocate to San Diego, a city where I knew absolutely no one. My mind craved the healing power of constant sunshine after I'd everything I've endured, and the city's thriving tech scene offered the perfect backdrop for building both my startup and myself. But terror gripped me at the thought of landing in yet another unfamiliar town, isolated and friendless, never knowing when Kundalini might surge through my system or when another spiritual attack might blindside me without warning. These two unseen forces hadn't just slowed my startup's progress, they had turned my life into a minefield where each step forward carried the potential for complete derailment. To make matters worse, I began to see Justin's real side. After Camel events, we'd stay up late talking about transcending ego and living through love. And I trusted him because love was all he ever spoke of. But it's one thing to talk about love, and it's another to live it. When our partnership faced its first real test over ownership stakes, fear gripped him like a vice. The code we had built together was suddenly locked away from me after Justin, an admin to the website that housed the keys, had changed the password and removed me as an admin. In hindsight, it was my fault for giving him the keys before we signed a legal agreement, but it stung all the more because, in addition to Will's angel investment, I was the one funding everything, and our chemistry never hinted at mistrust. He insisted, albeit somewhat passively, that as the lead developer, he should be the rightful owner, overlooking the fact that the project was under my company's corporate umbrella and disregarding both my explanations and those of several experienced business mentors, all of whom made clear how equity is properly divided between a CTO and a CEO. I offered him a healthy equity percentage, fully in line with what lead developers receive at software companies, but it wasn't enough for him. Programmers don't often grasp the countless responsibilities a CEO must juggle: division, fundraising, hiring, operations, and constant risk taking that keep a company alive. It's a common blind spot in tech. They struggle to understand that writing code is just one part of the puzzle, not the whole picture. I trusted him because he always spoke of love. But again, it's one thing to talk about love, and it's another to live it. What followed was a costly, grinding legal war that devoured months while our revolutionary project withered in suspended animation. Each week brought fresh volleys of legal documents and threats from our respective counsels, adding another layer to the mounting fees that consumed our meager $85,000 investment resources like a slow burning fire. I ultimately won the case, and in the meantime had quietly assembled an entirely new team, one forged from actual trust rather than weekend workshop rhetoric. The bitter experience had taught me something far more valuable than any spiritual seminar ever could. People reveal their true nature not in moments of comfort and philosophical discussion, but when their feet cornered, when something precious hangs in the balance. Justin could speak eloquently about unconditional love when it cost him nothing, but the moment his interests were threatened, his deeper programming surfaced like oil rising through water. This is the eternal human paradox on the spiritual path. We mistake intellectual understanding for actual transformation, confusing the map for the territory itself. In short, there are far more charlatans claiming they live from unconditional love than there are those who actually embody it. The spiritual marketplace teems with teachers who've mastered enlightenment vocabulary while remaining prisoners of their own shadows. You can spot these pretenders easily. Watch how they treat people who serve no use to their agenda: the customer service rep who can't waive their late fees, the skeptical student who questions them, or anyone who dares to challenge their authority. Notice their relationship with money and power. Observe their reaction when questioned or criticized. True unconditional love doesn't fluctuate based on convenience or self interest. But the charlatan's masks slip the moment their ego feels threatened. Their unconditional love, it turns out, comes with very specific conditions. That realization bled into my own life in unexpected ways. While I was busy discerning truth from falsehood in others, life demanded that I make my own leap of faith. My unpaid medical leave for my job had expired, and I chose to leave my employer since I was now fully committed to the startup, which consumed every moment I wasn't dealing with Kundalini crises. Now, with no income, I had to cash out $35,000 from stocks and 401k, which is what remained after $40,000 in dental and medical surgeries, and moved into a backyard treehouse Airbnb. At $50 per night, it was San Diego's cheapest accommodations, offering barely enough room for a suitcase, had an outdoor shower, and kitchen privileges with the host family. The treehouse sat directly beneath an airport flight path, with jets roaring overhead every quarter hour at volumes that made conversation impossible when it was all happening. God, what was my life? Not again. Not again. Not again. Sadly, I didn't have any other choice. I had grown weary of scraping by, particularly now in my late 30s, single, isolated once more, and battling it through an intense spiritual awakening while dedicating every ounce of my focus to what I was certain would become a multi-million-dollar enterprise, given the exceptional team of developers I had recruited. Each day mirrored the last, endless hours hunched over my laptop in solitary co-working spaces, cafes, or my tiny accommodation, attempting to master the complexities of building a company from nothing. Someday this would be the big spread in Entrepreneur magazine, a grotesque rag to riches story plastered with my mugshot and a headlight reading, "From treehouse to penthouse." Yet, most of my energy went toward managing Kundalini episodes and attending support meetings. During one support session, the host, prolific Kundalini YouTuber and teacher Craig Holliday, emphasized avoiding moving, changing employment, or making significant decisions, particularly in early awakening phases. I had broken every single commandment. When he said that, my face went pale as waves of nausea hit. I felt completely and irreversibly doomed. I desperately missed dating and physical intimacy with beautiful women. I hungered for genuine friendships. The profound loneliness and panic were overwhelming, but I submerged them in constant work. Every evening ended in tears as sleep finally came, recognizing the harsh reality of the startup, with slim odds of success due to an unhealthy CEO, while imploring the Divine Mother for a miraculous rescue. Looking back now, I could see how foolish I was, how impractical I was, and just how much I was living in denial. The depression worsened day by day until the nightly Kundalini purges shredded my sanity. One day, the energy erupted into pure rage. I stormed through a grocery store, screaming into my phone at my parents for bringing me into this world. My mother's sobs cut through the fury, and I collapsed in front of the cold dairy cases, breaking down completely. What had I become? In complete shame, I retreated back to the treehouse. Lay naked on the bed, I had no choice but to meditate, as the energies demanded it. About 3 or 4 hours in, I could hear the owner, his wife, and their crying baby just outside. Suddenly, consciousness began shifting, and then the illusion of separation just dropped. The baby's cries were suddenly mine. I was her, and she was me. Then, as the parents started talking, I realized I was them. An energetic shift of epic proportions had just happened. But this was starkly different from samadhi, universal flow, in leaving the Maya. Oh my God, it hit me. I was in unity consciousness. Unity, from my perspective, feels like you've been experiencing yourself as this isolated fragment, like a single leaf fluttering in the wind, completely unaware that you're actually an expression of the entire tree. You look around at other separate beings and wonder who they are, what their story is, feeling this fundamental disconnection. Then suddenly the perspective shifts, and you realize with stunning clarity that you are the tree. You always were. The other leaves you thought were foreign entities, they're your too. They're you too. Every branch, every root, every bit of bark. It's all one living system expressing itself through countless forms. It just took a zoom out shift to get the perspective. Another example I like to give is if you thought you were a finger. This finger, you, has been operating under this bizarre assumption that it's a standalone entity, perhaps wondering about the nature of other mysterious finger beings nearby. Then, boom, the awareness expands, and you can see clearly that you're the entire body, and a finger is just a part of that body. Both examples are followed by a powerful, of course, that instant when the veil lifts and remembrance floods back in with undeniable force. In unity consciousness, the you that seems so separate and defined suddenly reveals itself to be the same you looking out through every other pair of eyes, thinking through every other mind, beating in every other chest. The boundaries that felt so real and solid dissolve. And what remains is this incredible recognition that there was never actually anyone else here. There's only one consciousness, playing an elaborate game of hide and seek with itself, pretending to be billions of separate beings until the moment it remembers its true nature. It's not 8 billion people with 8 billion different points of consciousness broadcast from each one, but one consciousness broadcast and 8 billion people sharing it. Ah, so this is what the illusion of separation is. It lasted for about 30 minutes and slowly faded. Again, with a nervous system that couldn't handle it for longer periods of time, common for higher state acquisitions on the path. Whenever it was over, I made my way to the kitchen to share with the owner, Jeff, my only acquaintance in town, what I had just experienced. He called me over to his living room, a part of the house I hadn't been in before. So, what's up? He said. And before I could tell him, I saw above the couch a painting of me. There was a large painting of a naked man reclining on a bed, a man who was my absolute doppelgänger and resting in the exact naked position I was just in during my unity experience moments before. My jaw dropped. This was some next level LCS synchronization. Oh shit, yeah, that's definitely you, isn't it? Jeff said. You're tripping me out with that story, man. This is some wild shit, dude. I don't even know what to say here. I didn't either. I returned to the treehouse with no idea what to do with what was going on. And I pulled up a YouTube video of Adyashanti explaining a strikingly similar moment of unity for him. Yet his was a permanent shift. He had said he'd been meditating for 4 years religiously in his 20s when, finally, one night on that meditation mat, he collapsed and completely gave up. I remember thinking, I just don't know, he said. That came from a place very deep, a place I'd never been before. A total surrender, even knowing, the trying. In that moment, everything dropped. And I looked up at the Buddha figurine I had placed there near my meditation mat and said, You son of a bitch. You were me the entire time. This is why, after that experience, judgment became increasingly impossible for me. I can't even enjoy comedians roasting other people anymore. It feels like watching someone unknowingly ridicule themselves. Non-dual teacher Lisa Cairns pointed out from her state of unity that if separation is an illusion, then another person's success literally is your success, which makes competition and comparison absurd to her. Parrish furthered on this when he once spoke about his time as the warden and psychologist in a maximum security prison. He recognized himself in every inmate and understood that with their unique conditioning, upbringings, and traumas, he would have done exactly what they did. It's foolish and arrogant to think otherwise. Now, wherever I turn, I see fellow souls, warriors of consciousness like me, who volunteered for the ultimate gauntlet, to forget themselves and navigate this harsh world blind. While I still slip into judgment from time to time, the more I recognize our shared struggle, the more unity erodes it, leaving awe and compassion in its place. I realize now that every person's stumble, every heartbreak, every cry into the void is nothing less than the brave act of God rediscovering itself through us. I am endlessly proud of every being who chose to incarnate here, for in doing so, they honor the light that binds us all. no matter who they are or who they've been or who they think they are.